If you want to get in on the action, we want to hear from you. Email us at faderoutemail@gmail.com with your questions, comments, picks, segment suggestions, you name it. We want to hear from you. We're on Instagram too. Slide in our DMs at Fade Route Podcast. Get at us. Welcome to the Fade Route with D and Z. Here are your hosts, D and Z.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Fade Route. I am D, and with me as always is Z, and we have some great sports headlines to talk to you about today. We have a blockbuster trade that took place, including the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Dolphins. We're going to discuss the NBA trade deadline winners and losers, and our good friend Rob Adams joins us from the Hudson Valley Renegades. But we're going to begin today's show by discussing the NFL moving to a 17-game season. They're going to reduce the preseason games to 3. The NFC and the AFC will alternate every year with an extra home game. The extra game will be a cross-conference matchup based on the previous year's divisional standings and the divisional schedule rotation from 2 seasons prior. There will be no salary changes. They'll work in overseas or different country games once every 8 years for every team. But to the dismay of a lot of players, they did it. They were able to move to a 17-game regular season. So, Z, what do you think of the NFL owners' moves, players' reaction, and the future of the NFL because of it?
Well, let's be real here. 17 is an odd number. They're going to push hard for an 18 game. There's no doubt in my mind. Granted, you're losing one preseason game, and to me, watching preseason football and watching the first 4 weeks of an NFL season, they need as many reps as they can get. They need as much time together as possible, and cutting preseason is detrimental as it is. I do like the way that they are engineering the Week 18, where it's the cross-divisional rival based on, where they finished in the standings. Just for example, throwing it out there, the Giants play the Dolphins in Week 18. That's going to be a fantastic game. The Washington football team, as presently constituted, they're going up against the Buffalo Bills. So you have some things you have intriguing games. You have the Saints versus the Titans. Can that defense hold up against King Henry? It remains to be seen. The Buccaneers are going to play the Colts. You have some pretty good matchups coming up here, and it's impossible to finish at 500 now. So it's one of those things that it's going to look a little bit more kindly on teams where you're not going to be that 8-8 team. I know there was that meme about the Dallas Cowboys that you can't go 8-8 anymore. You can only go 8-1. So, ultimately, this is a speed bump on the road to 18. This is just to get players used to it, get fans used to it, and ultimately, I'm not surprised. It was inevitable.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. This is a speed bump on the road to 18. This was their gateway to get there. I like how they're pushing back on the overseas games a bit. My worry is it's going to become a numbers game towards the end of the season. And you might get into a situation where now teams no longer have to play the last game of the season, and they might not have to even play the second to last game of the season, depending on how everything is going to flow, because this is going to be a cross-conference game. So this game potentially could take place earlier in the year, and towards the end of the year, you might have everything wrapped up. We see it now where a lot of teams aren't playing that last game of the season. At least they're not toting their starters out there. So I just see a situation where you might not be doing that for 2 games. Also, it could create a disadvantage if you're giving teams extra weeks to prepare or extra chance to get hurt.
That's very true. And that, speaking of getting hurt, the one thing I don't like is you're not getting that second bye week. You're incurring a greater risk without any additional reward other than financial reward. But you were going to get paid that game anyway. So I think that, they're going to have to get a second bye week in here somehow. Extending, I do like that the Super Bowl is now going to be in the second week of February, starting to kind of move towards the inevitable President's Day Super Bowl, which they probably should be there anyway. But it's a work in progress. It definitely needs to be improved, but the NFLPA, you need to fight for that second bye week now. You got to fight for it hard, especially if they want that 18th that 18th game.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to come with the 18th game. I would assume that's where it's gonna pop up. But that was the latest headline. Big headline last week was the blockbuster NFL trade, in my opinion. 49ers trade the 12th overall pick, their 2022 third-round pick, and first-round picks in 2022 and 2023 for the number 3 pick in this year's draft. Then they trade them to the Dolphins, who then take that number 12 pick and trade it to the Eagles for the Eagles' 6th pick. And the Eagles get Eagles 6th pick and the 5th round pick, and then the Eagles get the number 12 pick, a 4th rounder, and a 2022 first rounder. What does all this mean for what is going to go down on draft day?
Well, you have to look at it in the context of the other comments made by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Maybe they are paying a little bit of lip service to Jimmy Garoppolo, but they have no intention of dealing him. They now have the number 3 pick in the draft, and you may have access to Zach Wilson. You may have access to Mac Jones or Justin Fields or any of these guys. But if you're intent on keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, if you think you're not that far off, maybe you're taking a Kyle Pitts, or maybe you're taking a Jamar Chase, or maybe Houston isn't 100% certain that their quarterback is going to be there week 1, and they're willing to send 5 number 1s for the number 3 this year to get somebody to cover their ass in case, there's another lawsuit against Deshaun Watson. It's up to 21 now, by the way, boys and girls.
Yeah, it's real. We talked about this leading up to the podcast, and I got to imagine they're trading up to get Mac Jones. And I'm not saying that's the right move, but you have to imagine that they're in love with 3 out of the top 5 quarterbacks. So we got to imagine that they're in love with Zach Wilson, they're in love with Justin Fields, and they're in love with Mac Jones. And we're assuming that Trevor Lawrence is going to go number 1 overall. But my only problem with this idea set, right, is that what if you don't get the guy you want? And that's why I have to imagine they're trading up for Mac Jones. And they're saying, you know what, we're worried the Falcons are going to take him, or we're worried somebody else is going to trade up to get him, maybe Carolina, so we're going to get him. And you know what? If Justin Fields or if Zach Wilson's there, hell, we'll take that guy and we'll be straight. That's got to be the mentality. You couldn't have traded all this capital and not expected to get your guy.
That's very true, but you also have to take into account the scuttlebutt that the Jets were offered this deal first instead of 3 for 2, and they flat out rejected it. So it makes you wonder where they're going with this. Do they believe that the Jets aren't going to take, if Jones is their guy, do they think the Jets are going to take Wilson? Do they think they're going to trade back to, maybe where Carolina's picking, or maybe where Denver's picking? Who knows? What are the Jets? We need to include the Jets in this thought process too, because according to reports, they refused this deal before the Dolphins said yes.
See, the issue with the Jets right now is I've been lobbying for them to trade out of this pick for weeks, but now you almost have to trade out of this pick, right? Because if you take Zach Wilson and he turns out to be the next Mitch Trubisky, you jack this up, right? If you go and take the Alabama receiver, Devonta Smith, and then all of us, or if you think about taking Waddle, or you take an offensive tackle, and then the 49ers come in and they take Mac Jones, or they take Justin Fields, or they take Zach Wilson, and that guy turns out to be a stud, disaster. You are now in the driver's seat, because now you have to look at it like this. All the teams in the NFL saw the 49ers trade up to get essentially a quarterback, right? So your pitch to any team who's looking for an upgrade at quarterback or a new quarterback is, listen, you already know that the 49ers are willing to give up this much to get one of these three guys. We're willing to bet it's this guy. And with our pick, we're going to take this guy. And so if you trade with us now, you could get this guy. And if that doesn't make a team like the Atlanta Falcons say, man, if the 49ers are willing to give up this much to get Mac Jones, I think we got to get Mac Jones. Or if you think to yourself, man, if the 49ers, if you're Carolina, the 49ers are willing to give up this much to get Zach Wilson, gosh, we got to just bet the farm on Zach Wilson, because look at how well the 49ers have drafted the last couple of years. They don't mess this up. They don't miss. So
Now,
this is your opportunity to say this pick, not number 2, is worth everything right now. And the best part is you could essentially trade out of this pick, get more capital, and still get one of the top 5 quarterbacks. Like, you're still not going to be in a bad position. It's almost like the draft from a couple of years ago when you had Baker, you had Allen, you had Lamar Jackson, and you had Sam Darnold. You were guaranteed to get one of those guys if you were in the top 5, top 10 picks. Is that bad? I mean, unless you drafted Josh Rosen, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, well, like every draft has a stinker. Some of them have a couple of them, but if I'm Joe Douglas, I'm floating some stuff out there, man, about how much I love Mac Jones, and he's going to look great in a Jets uniform. Right. And I'm playing chicken with the 49ers.
Right.
I'm not talking about the Panthers. I'm not talking to the Bears. I'm not talking to those guys. I'm trying to see how willing the 49ers are willing to move up one spot.
100%.
One spot. Right. Because they're scared shitless they're not going to get their guy.
And the other team you have to think about is Chicago, because they're stupid enough to trade a whole bunch for nothing. For nothing. They've done it once before, and this time, wait. This time, they have a chance to throw it in the 49ers' face, because the 49ers were the team that duped them last time. So now they have a chance to get back at them, move into number 2, and take the guy the 49ers wanted. Or trade into that spot and be like, Kyle, John, I'm open for business. We're going to take this guy. What and you, because like I said, you have to imagine that it's got to be Mac Jones. You cannot trade up and think you're going to get Zach Wilson or think you're going to get Justin Fields. You can't. You have to assume worst case scenario is the guy that we like the most, because if you trade it up and you don't get your guy, don't give me that, oh, well, we like all 5 or we like 3 of the top 5. No. You moved up to get a certain guy, and you got to hope you get him.
That's very true. And what are the odds that the Bears and the Jets work out a deal and the Bears take the guy they think the Niners want, but it turns out to be a colossal failure? Like, seeing Ryan Pace, it's pretty friggin' good.
Just because the Bears are involved, I say it's very highly likely. But I mean, at this point, if you're pacing, you're sitting there, it's like, man, I've screwed this up so far. What's another screw up? I'm still gonna be here, so whatever.
Very true. So I mean, the Niners are the clear winner. I mean, Miami is coming out pretty good too. They didn't drop that far They went from 3 to 6, and they didn't need a quarterback anyway if they believe in Tua. So, I mean, maybe they'll take Pitts to go with Gesicki, or maybe they'll bring in a wideout. They have some options. They can take best player available there. And as far as the Eagles go, obviously Taylor's thinking, I don't know what the hell he's thinking.
No, they did okay because they traded back, but they got some capital for future drafts. They're gonna work it out with Jalen Hurts. I would assume they pulled back because they're gonna take a wide receiver, and or if their wide receiver is not there, they'll get a defensive player. I think they're gonna be okay.
I don't know. I think they need linemen. I think they need interior offensive linemen. That's definitely an issue with it. I mean, the Eagles need so much.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You can't really pinpoint what the Eagles need because they need so much, and they were so terrible last year. But I mean, you kind of have to go best player available at that point, unless there's somebody who's kind of falling, who does the Brady Quinn fall or the Aaron Rodgers fall, and then somebody's willing to kind of trade up to maybe the Patriots, maybe, if they don't get if their guy's available and has done the job, they might make the move.
Yeah,
somebody might make the move. Maybe the Washington football team too.
Could be. But speaking about moves, the NBA trade deadline has passed. We had players going to different places. Raptors guard Kyle Lowry didn't play. He was expected to be traded, didn't quite make it out of his situation. But, I mean, there were obvious winners and losers. So out of all the trades that went on at the trade deadline and people that opted out but then got connected with another team, who would you say were the biggest winners and losers of the trade deadline?
If this 10-day contract with Boogie Cousins goes into effect, because they're discussing it right now as we speak, I like what the Clippers are doing, bringing in Rajon Rondo for Lou Williams. I mean, you can only be sixth man of the year so many times. This gives you a point guard with killer instinct. Playoff Rondo is a real thing. Victor Oladipo to the Miami Heat was a great idea in theory, but he has not suited up yet. So I'm going to hold out judgment on that. Vucevic to the Bulls. It hasn't been great so far. It's only been a few games. He needs to learn how to, be on the court with Zach LaVine and vice versa. Keeping Kyle Lowry is probably a great move on their part for the Raptors. Trading Powell doesn't really do much. Ultimately, I got to say, I really like what the Clippers did best of all.
It's interesting, but you're basing that off of them getting Rondo and possibly getting Cousins.
Correct.
All right. I mean, how could you not like what the Nets did, especially if this LaMarcus Aldridge, the Beast Aldridge works out? This happened shortly after the trade line. He asked for a buyout of his contract with the Spurs and cleared waivers, and Nets scooped him up because that's where he wanted to sign. I actually really liked the signing of the trade the Mavericks made to get JJ Redick, and I hate JJ.
You said, whoa, hang on. I just want to make sure I heard this.
Yeah.
You said something good about JJ
Redick. I know. I am. I hate the guy, and I think he's terrible. He's actually having an awful year. And before we got on the air, I read about how he's upset that he got traded to Dallas because he asked to be traded to the Northeast. It's like, dude, you're not good enough to tell people where you get traded. If you want to get traded somewhere, play better. But having said that, I think he's a good addition to their team because he is a decent shooter, and the change of scenery, he might play better down there. He's going to get open looks because there's just daggers all over the court for that Mavericks team. I thought the Clippers, Heat, and Sixers all really missed a chance to get Kyle Lowry. How could they not think the adding Kyle Lowry, regardless of what the cost was, would not put them over the top? I mean, I get it, with the Clippers, you're right. I mean, Rondo is a good player, and Boogie Cousins would, it doesn't hurt them to add him. 76ers could have really used Kyle, even if he's just playing the two guard for them. And Oladipo's good, but Oladipo's always hurt. I mean, the Heat, if they had Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, come on. You're going to make the playoffs with that team. And I think the biggest loser was the Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge Man, they go and get Evan Fournier, who gives them a big fuck you by going 0 for 13 in his team debut. Thanks, Danny.
Took a dump on the park.
Thanks, Danny. So that's where I sit. That's where I sit on the winners and losers of the NBA trade deadline.
True. I mean, I don't even count the LaMarcus Aldridge thing with the Nets because the Nets are, they're playing three-dimensional chess. Everybody else is playing checkers, and they're just like building this ridiculous super team. So, I mean, seriously, you added Blake Griffin already. You're going to get Durant back. You're going to get Kyrie back. Now you add LaMarcus Aldridge? Like, seriously?
This is what Adam Silver wanted, though. This is Adam Silver's NBA. He wants super teams, and he got them. You're right. It's an embarrassment. I mean, they actually were losing earlier today. I don't know if they're going to come back and win, but I mean, just pencil them in for the championship now. I mean, up until this point, I've been a doubter. I've been saying that they need a little bit more, but then they had Blake Griffin. I'm like, all right, well, I guess if he plays like 2015 Blake Griffin, which he is, he's dunking the basketball. His assists are up. He's taking jump shots. It's like, who is this guy? And now you add LaBeast Aldridge. He's going to wind up starting over DeAndre Jordan. I mean, he can hit all kinds of jump shots. He's got a post game. He grabs rebounds. Now I'm a believer. I mean, and James Harden's the MVP. You don't even need Kyrie and Durant to come back. Harden could win with these guys.
Well, after that crazy Instagram rant he unleashed against Michael Rappaport, he might be sitting for a little bit in addition to his injury rehab. So I don't know. KD might be out for a little bit, but LaMarcus Aldridge, I mean, he's averaging 14, 5, and 2 this year. I mean, he's definitely a complimentary player, but like, he's probably going to be revitalized. Look at what happened to James Harden. Look what happened to Blake Griffin. Like, winning cures all.
I mean, their potential lineup is going to be Harden, Kyrie, Joe Harris, probably LaMarcus Aldridge and Kevin Durant. And then if you can have LaMarcus Aldridge, DeAndre Jordan, or Blake Griffin come off the bench. I mean, they have it all. I mean, the one question right now is can the Lakers get healthy enough to finish the regular season and then really give them a hard time in the championship game? I don't think the addition of Rondo and Boogie is going to really stop the Nets from stomping them out. And then everyone keeps overlooking the Jazz. Jazz could potentially get swept by this Nets team.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. The Jazz, I'm not 100% sure that they're going. I mean, you start out so hot, you eventually can flame out. And I don't even know if they even make it to the Western Conference final. They were just so good, so fast, and they might not have anything left by the time that comes around. That's where having a veteran presence kind of takes you to that next level, because you can kind of pump the brakes a little bit. You can kind of, realize, hey, we don't need to be 31-2. Like, we don't need that. We can kind of slow down a little bit and pace ourselves and be there at the end when it matters. I mean, Portland might still be in this thing with Powell. I don't know how that's going to work out. And they got Melo, they got Lillard, they got McCollum. They still got players. Denver, they added Aaron Gordon. I don't know how that's going to necessarily work with them. He's going to bring them, a little bit more oomph that they lost from Jeremy Grant leaving. So, I mean, the Western Conference is definitely going to be a war of attrition. The Eastern Conference, it's going to be a sucker punch. Basically, you're going to if the Nets get caught, they're going to get caught with a lucky shot, whether it's an injury or something like that. Because you look at the Bucks aren't good enough. You look at the Sixers aren't good enough, at least on paper. But that's why you play the game.
Well, it's crazy because the Bucks, I feel like, took a huge step back this year. And the teams we thought were going to be competing, like Miami's in a 6th spot right now. Hawks are in a 7th spot. The Celtics are in the 8th spot. Bulls are the Pacers are in the 9th spot. Like, we thought the Pacers and the Celtics were going to compete this year. The Hornets are the 4, the Bucks are the 3, and the Knicks are the 5. The Knicks are the 5.
What world are we living in where the New York Knicks are actually in the mix?
The Knicks are the 5. I mean, listen, You got to play the games, but the Nets would need like 5 injuries at this point to collapse. As long as they have James Harden, they're gonna be okay. But
And a motivated James Harden at
motivated
that.
James Harden, and you can count on the Nets being in the championship. One of the things that I thought we could count on was Michigan beating UCLA yesterday, and man, was I wrong. UCLA 11 seed takes out number 1 Michigan, a number 1 seed, 51-49, ridiculously low score. Michigan goes the last 5 minutes without a basket. Their best player, who is projected to be a top 10 NBA draft pick, only scores 4 points. That's Franz Wagner, just in case anybody was wondering who that is. And I guess UCLA is the Cinderella team this year.
Well, I mean, we were focusing on 2 games. It was Michigan and UCLA, and then Gonzaga at USC. And Gonzaga steamrolled USC. So that leaves you with the little engine that could here, which is insane when you consider the pedigree that is UCLA basketball. We're talking Bill Walton. We're talking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We're talking John Wooden. And they're the little engine that could now. So it was the Johnny Juzang show. Like, he was 11-19, 28 points in 38 minutes. I mean, nobody was even close on his team. Campbell had 11. Like, that was the next.
Did somebody foul him or hurt him?
Score.
Like, at some point, you got to be in the huddle. You're drawing hours. Like, yo, somebody clip this kid. Like, are you kidding me?
That's the funny part. He got clipped against Michigan State. He's been hurt. He's been hurt since the play-in game. But he's like, this kid is showing me something, you know? And when Dickinson is the only Michigan player who ended up in double digits, and that's just, you know, when it's not falling for you, it's not falling for you. But
1 for 10
you know,
from the Franz Wagner, 1 for 10 for the field. And they only had 1 player in double digits, and this was the game to go to the Final Four. You were against an 11 seed, and this is how you played. Eli Brooks, who's my favorite player in Michigan, he only had 8 points. I scored 8 points in my first high school basketball game, man. Like, come on. I think we should all feel cheated because we're not going to get to see Michigan against Gonzaga. And that's the worst part about this, is that's what we wanted to see. Now we have UCLA, who's going to be playing Gonzaga, which they're going to get whopped. And then you have Baylor and Houston, which has the chance to be a really good game. And if you think about it, Gonzaga has a chance to beat USC. They have a chance to beat UCLA and get to the final and get to the championship. What an impressive thing that would be for Gonzaga.
Well, it seems to be a crash course with them and Baylor. That's for sure. I mean, Houston can definitely play a spoiler, though, because, I mean, they got, 2 1s and a 2? Or 2 1s, something like that. And it's just like, the NCAA selection committee got what they wanted, for the most part. But inevitably, these guys have been going back and forth all year. It's been Gonzaga, Baylor, and I think that is what they're going to be banking on. But I just want to take the time and pour one out for everybody's brackets that had Michigan. Like, we're all done. So,
I think the problem I have is when it comes to college basketball, I guess you're okay with the Cinderella story, but ultimately you want to see the best teams in the Final Four. UCLA is not one of the best 4 teams. Not after scoring 51 points, and it's great that they won the play-in game and they got here, but I mean, this isn't really how it's supposed to go down. Like, if you compare them to like George Mason was a great school. Like, they had a great tournament.
Yeah.
Like, they were playing fantastic. I mean, I think Michigan lost that game more than UCL won it, especially in the final possession. They missed 2s, 3s, rebounds, layups. Like, who's on the take here?
Well, I mean, at some point, you do get tight. You know that you're supposed to win this game. You know you're the number 1 seed. And granted, they've been without their best player, but Livers has been out the entire time. It's not like he just
Right, this wasn't a surprise.
he just
He
went
didn't
out.
lose.
No.
They didn't lose him last game. Even guys been crushing. They crushed people. They crushed Florida State.
Yeah, but they got punched.
They got
and
punched.
they didn't know
They
how to
took a
handle
Mike
it.
Tyson. I'm looking for my mouthpiece on the floor, and I don't know if Juwan Howard's to blame here. I don't know if he didn't make adjustments, but you got one of the biggest guys on the floor. Why aren't you feeding him, man? What's happening there? What's the game plan? What's the conversation at halftime? Down at halftime, I think they were down 27-23. They scored 23 points at halftime. Wake up! Get off the bus.
Well, I mean that's also the difference between a relatively new head coach. I think it's Juwan's like second or third season, and then Mick Cronin. Mick Cronin has been around forever. But Mick
Cronin was at your wedding, wasn't
he? He was. He like I said, he's seen shit that Juwan Howard's never even thought of. So it's one of those things that age and treachery over youth.
Man.
But good for Mick. He's definitely restoring what kind of went by the wayside when they brought in Ben Howland, and it just kind of went into this UCLA death spiral.
That's until they get clapped against Gonzaga in their next game. But enough about college basketball. Let's move to Major League Baseball, which starts tomorrow. It's our favorite sport. It's the best sport. It's a shark. It's an alligator. There's nothing could make it bad except for Rob Manfred. But unfortunately, the White Sox are going to be without one of their best players for the whole season because Eloy Jimenez tried to rob a home run in a spring game. He tore his pectoral muscle. He's going to be out 5 to 6 months. Man, what a blow. And a lot of people picked the White Sox to win the division, even compete for the World Series. They brought in La Russa. Man, they were going for it this year. What should the White Sox do to replace Eloy Jimenez? Or do they even have to? Do they have enough to stay the course?
Well, let's just see what they have to replace here. I mean, last year, 296 batting average, 14 home runs in a limited sample size, only 213 at-bats, shortened season, so it's to be expected. But career in 2 seasons, he's already belted out 45 home runs. He's already driven in 120 ribbies. He scored 95 runs. So he is a significant
He's a big dude.
part. He's a big dude. 6'4", 240. He is a significant part of this offense. Jose Abreu is going to have to continue to be the MVP of the league. You're going to have to get some, you're going to have to get Yoel Moncada. You're going to have Tim Anderson. These guys are going to have to play. Look at the outfield right now. Without Eloy Jimenez, you have Luis Robert. I don't call him Robert. Luis Robert. It sounds better. He's legit. Adam Eaton, I don't fucking believe him.
He's still alive?
I've seen him with the Nationals. Adam, yes. Not only is he alive, he went back to the White Sox. Good for you, Adam. I don't believe in you. And then Adam Engel is going to step in right now. Exactly.
Sounds like a White Sox already.
That's it. But you know what? You know what Tony La Russa is going to be saying? Give me Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn, one of their top prospects, has made this team. The problem is he's a first baseman. So it doesn't help you in the field. It might help replace what Eloy brings to the bat, though.
Yeah, I'm a doubter. I think they need to make a move. The first name I thought about was Nick Markakis. He retired. Give him a call. Work something out. Tell him you'll give him a house, a car, whatever it's going to take. I mean, I think Nick Markakis can give you a 260 batting average, 20 home runs, and about 80 RBI in that lineup. He's in 15 years, he's got 2,300 hits. He's a career 288 hitter. I think you got to give him a call, try it out. Puig, I don't know. Cespedes, I don't know, but you got to give it the try because they're literally one outfielder away from being a legit contender for a title.
I mean, it's close. They definitely needed to do more. Depth is an issue, and Adam Eaton was not the answer. Yeah. So maybe they're just waiting for some cut downs, some waiver claims, something like that. But I, I don't know. I don't see it. I really don't see where help is going to come from. Yoenis Cespedes is great. He's 35 years old, and he just quit on the Mets because he didn't like what they were going to do regarding his playing time. What is he going to do in 5 or 6 months when Jimenez is back? Like, is he going to sulk and pout and quit again? Like, that is a bad precedent, and I'm not a fan of that. Nick Markakis would be great, but I don't think he's coming back to anybody except for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
I just think that
he's not coming back
he's
at
from
all.
Georgia. No, he's done. He's good.
I'm good, Tony.
And
Tony. No, I'm not going to
Yeah,
Chicago. Absolutely not. I'll stay here.
no. Like, do you go get a Cameron Maybin? Do you go get a John Jay? I know these guys have already been cut loose, but is that really? That's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I don't necessarily think that that's going to help them. I'm still gushing blood here. I don't know, but they got to do something. But the one thing they can't do is get off to a slow start. That's the thing. Because if they get off to the slow start, exacerbated by the fact that he's not going to be there for 6 months, it's going to be panic time pretty fast. Okay. It's the In Route, where friends of the show get a special segment with us. Want to get in on the action? Want to be part of the in crowd? Hit us up, faderoutemail@gmail.com, or slide in our DMs at Fade Route Podcast on IG.
Joining us now for the In Route is the sports director of WGCH in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the voice of the Hudson Valley Renegades, which is a single-A affiliate of the New York Yankees. Rob Adams, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us tonight.
Damian, Anthony, good to talk to you guys. Thanks for the time.
Of course.
I'm gonna hit you with the hard questions early. With the additions of Kluber and Talion, have the Yankees addressed their most glaring weakness, which everybody perceives as their rotation?
I think, look, we all know it's a results-driven world. If the Yankees get the results out of Talion and Kluber, they're going to be just fine. They've got one of the best pitchers in baseball at the top of the rotation. I'm not going to tell you he's the best pitcher. I'm not even going to tell you he's the best pitcher in New York, but Cole is fantastic. In any other world that doesn't include Jacob deGrom, Cole would be the best pitcher, but deGrom is there. I think the Yankees made some bold moves bringing both these arms in. If their arms are healthy, if their bodies are healthy, then they've done some good things. But it could turn out to be an epic disaster. The early returns have been okay, though.
Right. You can never account for injuries. That's the tough part about baseball.
Right.
But with the season starting tomorrow, who are you expecting to have maybe a breakout season or a surprising season? And then who do you think we can count on to also disappoint us as the season rolls on?
Well, I think Sanchez continues to be a big concern for the Yankees. I don't know if, can we be any more disappointed than he's already been to a Yankee fan. I'm hoping for bigger things from Glaber. He came into camp last year looking great, then went through some weight problems before the restart later on. I don't know if there's a guy that's otherwise going to disappoint. I'm a little concerned about DJ LeMahieu only in the way that he got the big contract, and I don't want him to worry about living up to it. Now, he is called the machine for a reason because he doesn't think about any of this stuff. So I tend to think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it would be a terrible disappointment if DJ is not able to really contribute this year.
Yeah, if you've listened to the show recently, you know as well as I do that we are not the biggest Gary Sanchez fans in the world. So I think we're right on lockstep with you on that. I mean, he needs to be better. He needs to go back to rookie Gary Sanchez, not the most recent Gary Sanchez.
There,
that's for damn sure.
There are so many things about his game that trouble me. I worry about his pitch, his pitch calling. His rapport with pitchers obviously is an issue. His plate coverage is terrible as a catcher. We all know about the passed balls. And obviously, offensively, he wasn't even anemic. He was invisible. And we know there have been poor hitting catchers. Traditionally, that was part of being a catcher, was you took the great defense with an okay bat. Not everybody was Mike Piazza, not everybody was Johnny Bench, not everybody was Yogi Berra. Now we're seeing bigger offensive catchers in this day and age. But Sanchez might as well take us back to a far different time, because his offense is just awful.
Do you think they're asking him to too much? I feel like they're paying him to hit well and catch well, and he's not doing either of those right now.
No, I don't. I think those pieces were there when he was a rookie. Why did he surprise us all and kind of give us those good early year or two? Because it wasn't just the rookie year. His second year wasn't so bad. It's really been after that he has just been a disaster, to the point that it's troubling. You almost feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, it does coincide a little bit to when Joe Girardi allegedly started messing with his head behind the plate, and definitely kind of made him call into question what he was doing behind the plate. Maybe it got a little mechanical for him, and ultimately that's why they ended up making the managerial switch. So you can say what you will about X's and O's and execution, but at the end of the day, it was about player relations. Why Joe Girardi is still not the manager of this team.
Yeah, look, we can't complain about Aaron Boone, because the results have actually been pretty great regular season-wise. They have not been great postseason-wise. But Girardi was a pretty terrific manager, and I think he makes a team better. Not every manager does. I think Girardi does. I think he makes the Phillies that much better. And never forget what he did with the very first team he had, the Marlins. I mean, he did a great job with them.
Yeah, speaking about Joe Girardi and Aaron Boone, the Yankees are famous for really having only a few managers over the last 21 years. I mean, we pretty much had Joe Girardi, Joe Torre, and now Aaron Boone. At what point would it be fair to discuss Aaron Boone's job security this season?
Well, I think you got to look again at the results. If the Yankees go on and, if they have another 95, 100 win year, I don't think he's going anywhere, even with another subpar performance in the postseason. It's when, they fail to make the playoffs, or, if there's that actual borderline, 500 year or something like that, then he's going to be in trouble. It's amazing the level of stability that the managerial role with the Yankees has been, as you've alluded to. But prior to those 21 years, obviously those Steinbrenner years from 73 until Joe Torre in 96 were just a joke. They were embarrassing for the team.
Yeah, to say it was volatile is a gross understatement.
Oh.
And so with all that said, what are your predictions for the Yankees this season? Where do you see them, and how far do you see them going?
I do think they win the American League East, so long as they're healthy. And that's not exactly going out on a big limb. I don't think that any other team has the level of talent. You've already got Springer starting on the IL for the Blue Jays, and I think the Blue Jays will be fun. I think the Blue Jays will be a contender, and they might even maybe be a playoff team. I'm not sure. The Red Sox are getting dangerously close to being real, or they're getting dangerously close to falling off a cliff. It's going to go either way with the Red Sox. I'm always impressed with what Tampa Bay does in that division, with what little they supposedly have. And look, before the Renegades became a Yankee team, they were a Tampa Bay team. So I watched them do this for a long time. I'm always impressed, and I guess I shouldn't count them out, but, big losses with Blake Snell and so on. And the Orioles are the Orioles might have the worst owner in baseball, if not all of sports. I just think he is an abysmal person when it comes right down to it. Just the things he has done with Baltimore have been terrible. All that said, I think the Yankees win the division. I think they're, are they a 95, 98 win team? I think that's possible. Can they go over 100? Yes. I think the sky's the limit for them, so long as they're healthy, the pieces come together. I can see them standing toe-to-toe in the World Series finally, because this is, for a Yankee world, this is amazing to go this long without a World Series appearance. I know we're spoiled. I get that, believe me.
So, they do have the squad capable of making it to the World Series. Who do you have them staring down from the National League? What's your World Series prediction?
I hate to be so bland, but right now, until somebody beats the Dodgers, I can't see it any other way than Yankees-Dodgers right now. I can see the Astros making some noise. I can see the White Sox are a flavor of the month pick. Again, the Blue Jays are kind of lingering around. There are teams like that in the American League. But I feel like the bigger heavy hitters come from the National League. You have to be impressed by what the Padres have done. The Padres have really gone for it to make San Diego a baseball mad town. And keep in mind, San Diego doesn't have a lot sports-wise these days unless you're into college sports. With the Chargers going to L.A., it's the Padres' time to take over that city once and for all. And you think about what they have done in San Diego, they can make a big run. I hope it's Yankees, Red Sox West. I hope the Dodgers and Padres just beat the beast out of each other, and then the Yankees can just go, okay, we've got this. But I could very much see that being the National League Championship is Dodgers Padres.
No, that's very fair. I mean, like you said, there are a lot of heavy hitters. Yeah, we're going to do our picks for the National League East. I mean, you didn't even mention the Mets, didn't mention the Braves. Right. You didn't mention the Phillies. Right. If they get some pitching help, I mean, I don't expect anything out of the National League Central. So, I mean, maybe the Cardinals will do something, but it definitely, like, the top 4 teams in that league will definitely give the Yankees a run for their money. But transitioning to football, we know you are a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and grade their offseason. What do you expect them to do in the draft?
Oh, boy. It used to be the conventional wisdom was, go get a running back, but this is just not a running back league anymore. Even though they need some kind of stability in the backfield, it became too Ben Roethlisberger heavy. And I love Ben. I do. I think he's been a great player for a long time. He's not Terry Bradshaw, but that's okay. He doesn't have to be. If he's the second greatest quarterback in Steelers history, there's no harm in that. He still won 2 Super Bowls and went to a third. So no harm there. I'm fairly content that they've done what they've done in terms of moving pieces around because they have major cap issues, that they were able to bring Juju back. And look, I like Juju a lot. I think he's more personality than he is great receiver. I don't know that he's a top flight receiver. He's a nice 1 or 2 option, but not a huge one. This is not the top of the line when we're talking about receivers. I think Juju's really good. The Steelers have a good collection of receivers who dropped way too many passes last year, so that needs to get cleaned up. But mostly I'm concerned about a running back and then the offensive line. The offensive line was really troubling, and I love Al Villanueva. Love him, served our country. He's a good man, but it was tough to watch at times last year, and Marquise Pouncey stepping away and retiring. So there are holes to me on the offensive line that need to get cleaned up. I don't know if that's the route they'll go, but I do think that's a huge need to address.
No, that's absolutely fair, especially when you lose the quality of players that you lose. And you did, I mean, at one point that team was 11-0. I mean, we definitely need to keep that in mind. To have such a drastic fall off the cliff, I mean, major changes needed to be made. But we'll get you here on this one, Rob. You've been instrumental in my broadcasting career. I started at CSB. You were one of my teachers. And what advice would you give someone who wants to get into the sports broadcasting industry?
There are so many things I would say, and I do still teach there, and I love talking about it. The first thing I always tell students is just network, just meet people, and don't just meet them and be like, oh, yeah, okay, I met that guy. No, you got to stay in touch with these people because you just never know when a door is going to open. And I'm still saying this to myself. Years ago, I was in touch with Brian Anderson, who is now a huge star at Turner and, all the stuff he has done with the Brewers and everything. I think I still have his cell phone number, but I don't feel quite as comfortable reaching back out and going, hey, Brian, it's been a decade or so. How are you? But I do think networking is so important. Just knowing people. Don't burn any bridges. I know this is such a lousy business at times. It's a brutal business at times, but be good to the people that you've met. Do your grumbling somewhere else where you need to do it, and just grind. You just have to work at this. If it's something you really believe in, it's got to be your passion. You guys are showing it by doing something like this, and that often means doing stuff not for the glory, not for the glamour, not for the money, doing it just because you're just getting the reps. And even me, after all these years, I still do things just to keep sharp and stay at it. And those to me are all very important things. Be open-minded. Always be open-minded to opportunity. I tell students that all the time. When you want to be in sports, that's great. But if someone comes along and says, hey, I need you to go report a news story for me, go do it. You never know. You just never know where it's going to lead you, and you want to stay relevant in this business. And then the last thing I always say is just stay humble, because, again, this business can just really beat you up.
No, totally. It definitely, it can suck the passion, suck the soul out of you if you let it. That's 100% true. So, definitely great sage words. And, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Newest member of the In Crowd. And hopefully we can do this again in person someday when we don't have to worry about a global pandemic.
That would be a very nice thing. I'm looking forward to being in a stadium with at least some fans. I hope we keep getting more fans in the door. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. Really nice of you to ask me to come on, and I'll come back anytime.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thanks a lot. And
thanks, Rob.
If you ever need anybody, just hit us
Sounds
up too.
good.
All right.
You got it.
All right. Take
Thanks,
it easy.
guys.
Be
You
well.
too.
I'm getting hungry over here. Should have cooked up some dinner. And if you're looking for a new cooking show to binge, check out As You Eat It on YouTube, hosted by me, Chef Z. I invite you into my home and show you what and how I cook when I'm off the clock as a chef instructor. You're going to learn fun recipes and creative methods to empower and inspire you in the kitchen and take it to the next level. Cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat as you eat it. That's As You Eat It, available only on YouTube. AZ, you eat it. Check it out, and let's get cooking. More or less?
Well, boys and girls, it's time for one of our favorite games to play, More Likely or Less Likely. I will read a statement, and we will say it's more likely or less likely. All right, first one up, more likely or less likely. Andre Drummond will help the Lakers this season.
Well, I'm going more likely on this. In the 25 games he has played this season, he was averaging 17 and a half, so 18, 14, and 3. So those numbers will definitely help. Are they Anthony Davis numbers? No, they are not. But every little bit helps. You're down Schroeder. You're down LeBron. You're down Anthony Davis. You need as much as you can get. And the most important thing about Andre Drummond, he provides interior defense. They are not going to get shredded with him in the middle like they have been. So however long it's going to be, he's definitely an upgrade over what they have, and it is more likely that he is going to be a success for them.
Yeah, I'm going to break this into two sections. I'm going to say if Anthony Davis does not come back and he's not 100%, I'm going to say it's more likely because he's going to take a terrible Laker team and make it an average team. But with AD, if AD comes back, he's 100%. I'm going to see less likely because I don't see what he's going to do. He's a good rebounder and he's a solid defender, but the Lakers need scoring. They're going to need to score a lot of points to keep up with their competition in the playoffs and in the championship. So I'm breaking it down into two avenues.
It makes total sense. The one thing about that is that with Anthony Davis, the 2 injuries that he has makes him virtually unreliable. You don't know how long it's going to take. Does it flare up again? Having an Achilles in addition to your knee, it's, for a big man, forget it. Like that's going to be tough. It's almost as bad as LeBron's high ankle sprain.
High ankle.
So both of them those are some of the worst injuries you could possibly get, especially at an advanced age in NBA.
High ankle sprains are the worst. Okay, next statement. More likely, less likely, the Rockets will win more games than the Buffalo Sabres. For those of you that don't know, the Sabres are on an 18-game losing streak. They blew a 3-goal lead last night to the Flyers, who they're playing again today. So far, they're 6-23 on the season. The Rockets, they've had people leaving for the last 2 months, starting with James Harden, and they're currently 13-33. But what say you? Rockets will win more games than the Buffalo Sabres, more likely or less likely?
This is tough. I'm going to say this is like the 2 bowls of shit, and which one smells less offensive. The Rockets, they don't score. They don't rebound. They don't play defense. They don't do anything particularly well, but they still have their coach. The Buffalo Sabres have lost Eichel. They've lost a significant amount of talent. They got their head coach fired, Ralph Kruger. It's addition by subtraction. Ralph Kruger sucks as a head coach anyway. Ask anybody who has ever played for Ralph Kruger. He is not a good NHL head coach. I don't understand why he got a second chance to begin with. But there is one thing that the Buffalo Sabres can hang their hats on. They are the 3rd worst in giving up goals. They are dead last in scoring goals. But they are 13th in the league in power play. So at least you have that. If, by the grace of God, somebody takes a penalty on the opposition, they have a 22% chance that they are going to score. Good for you. So with that said, I am going to say the Buffalo Sabres are going to win more games than the Houston Rockets this year.
I'm just going to say less likely. I've seen them play, and hearing their current coach talk at the postgame said it all. The reporter asked him, "So what are you going to say to the team?" He's like, "I'm not going to say anything to him. I got nothing to say to them. I'm going to let them think about what just happened."
Right.
Their goalie can't stop anything. And it's a mental thing right now. Like in the 3rd period, they're just trying to find ways to lose. You kind of rooted for them last night. I was kind of hoping they would get out of it. But, I mean, they're 6-23. The Rockets are 13-33. But the one thing I will say about the Rockets is that everybody who's there and playing right now, they actually want to be there. Even John Wall. He wants to be there. He wants to win games. He wants to show that he can still play at an elite level. Everybody there wants to play. Everybody's playing hard. I think the Buffalo Sabres are like, man, this can't end soon enough.
No, but it's an embarrassment for the expectations that Terry Pegula and the NHL in general has put on the Buffalo Sabres. And it's now gotten to the point where they're changing the rules around the draft lottery so teams like Buffalo and New Jersey can't repeatedly benefit from sucking so bad. So it might be a very long time before the Buffalo Sabres are any good.
Okay, last one. More likely, less likely, Cespedes will get a job before Yasiel Puig, who is a good one.
I'm going to go more likely, and it pains me to do so. Yoenis Cespedes at this point in his career is only a DH. I would not stick him in the outfield with the extensive surgeries that he has had on his legs. That being said, Yasiel Puig has never quit on his team, to the best of my knowledge, but Yoenis Cespedes also doesn't have a sexual assault charge pending against him. So that's the one thing that works against Yasiel Puig. So that is unfortunately putting me in the camp of Yoenis Cespedes getting a job, and I'm already calling my shot. He's going to end up with the White Sox at some point to play with his half-brother, who they just brought in this year as a minor league free agent, and he's one of their top prospects. He's 23, so he's still, he's on the verge of kind of being ready. So he may be the guy that comes up and replaces Eloy Jimenez, at least for a little bit, but I'm seeing them taking at least a flyer on Yoenis Cespedes. I'm going to say
I'm going to say more likely too, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's got a sexual assault charge on him right now. So I don't think anybody's going to touch him. He was in Braves camp last year, and he just he was playing lousy. I don't think anybody wants to touch him right now. I don't think anybody wants him to play on their team. The only problem with Cespedes is he's only played in 127 games in the last 4 years. But when he's played, he's been productive. His attitude is terrible, and
you don't have to tell me. I lived it.
I know. So
yeah. Dude, but if you look at the numbers, like, it is crazy. Yoenis Cespedes in his career has hit 165 home runs, right? Yasiel Puig has only hit 132. So it's not that far off. Puig is a 277 career batting average. Cespedes is at 273. They're roughly the same.
I would disagree in the standpoint where I think Cespedes is a better hitter, and I think Puig is a better base runner, better outfielder, better all-around player. Puig can steal bases. I don't know how many stolen bases Cespedes has, but yeah. So I would say that, home run hitter, power hitter, Cespedes, but at one point, Yasiel Puig was an above-average baseball player.
He was above average. That's how he got the nickname the Wild Horse. He was always do some things that make you question if he was actually paying attention to what the hell was going on. So Cespedes is definitely more of a disciplined player, but Yasiel Puig, one unbridled is.
That's a nice way of saying he was an asshole.
That is a very nice way of saying he was an asshole.
All right. Are you in need of air care maintenance or service? I have the company for you. Air Care Technicians. They service the Westchester and Northern Bronx area and can help you with all your heating and cooling, maintenance, and service needs. Just give them a call at 914-315-1547. Again, that's 914-315-1547. Or shoot them an email at aircaretechnicians@gmail.com. These guys are the real deal, as they are veteran-owned, licensed, and insured. Make sure to tell them that D&Z sent you.
Order up!
All right, so we're going to do our Order Up segment. This is the last division. We've covered all the divisions for Major League Baseball. Today we're going to do the NL East, which in my opinion is the best division in baseball. And both of our favorite teams actually reside in this division, with baseball's season kicking off tomorrow. How fitting is it that we finish this today? So, Order Up. What do you got? Your countdown from 5 to 1. How's it going to lay out in the NL East?
This is a surprisingly tough division, especially when you take into account that the Marlins were in the playoffs last year. So you also, you have to keep that in mind. The Mets added, the Braves added, the Phillies added, the Nationals added. Like, you have guys here. This is going to be a tough selection for last place. It's going to be close, but I'm taking the Marlins just for the simple fact that I don't believe that last year was legit. I think it was an aberration. You're bringing those guys back. You're adding a few guys to the mix. You're bringing in your Corey Dickersons, your Starling Martes, Jesus Aguilar, Adam Duvall. You're bringing in these quadruple A players to kind of stem the tide here. But your pitching staff is still young. It's still relatively unproven. Even with the playoff berth, sorry, guys, you're in last place. Fourth place, I'm going to take the Phillies. I don't believe in their rotation. I've seen Zach Wheeler. I've
He
seen
used
the
to live
good of
across
Zach
the street
Wheeler. I've
from
seen the
you,
bad
right?
of Zach Wheeler. He did. I said, "How's it hanging, Zach?" And I said, "Well, I need Tommy John again." So there we go. So it's not hanging too well. It's Aaron Nola and 4 other dudes, as far as I'm concerned. Hector Neris was named their closer. Hector Neris is eh. I personally would have chosen Archie Bradley. I like Archie Bradley a lot better in that role. The lineup kind of plays. You do have veteran presence in that lineup. I can't stand Bryce Harper. I just can't. But I love me some Didi Gregorius. I think he's going to have a great year. Rhys Hoskins, decent player. Kutch, even at a relatively advanced age. Kutch is Kutch. Real Muto, we're going to see what he's about. And I mean, they already had to send Scott Kingery out. They signed him to a huge
$24 million.
extension, and he's not cracking the big league team. So yeah, fourth place. Enjoy it, Joe.
Can he hit?
Sorry.
If he can hit, how come he's not hitting?
Apparently. I don't know. Maybe it's because they moved him to center field from second base. I don't know. There are lots of things, but he's got to work it out on his own. Third place, I'm going with the Nationals. They didn't do enough for me. They sent out Carter Kieboom, and now you have Josh Harrison at third base. Great. We're rehashing Pittsburgh Pirates from 6 years ago, so that's great. Schwarber. Schwarber was dead. He should have been on an American League team. This guy needs to hang up his glove and forget where he put it. Josh Bell was a good addition. I do like what he brings to the team, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to overcome everybody else not playing well. I mean, you're going to get a good year from Turner. You're going to get a good year from Soto. Starlin Castro is eh. Yan Gomes is eh. So third place is very reasonable just from the strength of that rotation. They added John Lester. John Lester at this point in his career slotted in as a 4, so I'd say that's pretty solid. And they got my closer. They got Brad Hand. I really wanted him on the Mets, but you know what? It is what it is. Now it's down to the real nitty-gritty. These are the two teams that are going to slug it out the entire season. It's the Mets and it's the Braves. And I'm going to go with the Braves in second place because I don't like their rotation as much as I like the Mets rotation, even with the injuries. Morton, Fried, Anderson, Smiley, solid 4, unspectacular. I know it's going to be on your tombstone. Will Smith is your closer. Okay. And then the lineup plays, but what are you going to get from Austin Riley and what are you going to get from Christian Pache? Everybody else, and let's not forget Travis d'Arnaud. Which Travis d'Arnaud is going to show up this year? The guy who stunk for the Mets or the guy who actually hit pretty well for the Braves? Everybody else, I'm not concerned about that in that lineup. Which leads me to the number 1. Don't call me a homer. If you call me a homer, fuck you. The New York Mets are tailor-made to take this division from 1 to 9 in that lineup. The weakest hitter, Brandon Nimmo, but he still gets on base at a ridiculous clip between the walks and the hit by pitches. And you look at that rotation, yeah, you don't have Carrasco. You don't have Syndergaard right now. You have DeGrom. You have Stroman. You have Taijuan Walker. That has a nice little under-the-radar signing. You brought in Joey Lucchesi, veteran pitcher from the Padres. David Peterson. I like what he brings to the table. He was solid last year. Edwin Diaz scares the shit out of me. But if the lineup does what they need to do, I'm not going to see too much of sugar. So there it is. My 5-1 with the New York Mets winning this division.
Yeah, we're very close. No surprise there. I definitely have the Miami Marlins being at the bottom of the barrel here. They actually have a chance to finish 500, I think. They proved last year that they could play. I mean, I believe they swept the Cubs in the first round, but I think they're too young to compete for a title this year. They got their homegrown talent in Brian Anderson, but he'll have his hands full trying to generate success in this tough division. Number 4, was kind of surprising to me. I actually have the Phillies in 4. I think I'm just not scared of Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, or Zach Eflin. I'm just not scared of them. They were hell-bent on getting Real Muto. They got him, but they're going to need Harper to be more like Mike Trout this year. They're going to need Harper to play like he's a top 5 player, and I just don't think he is. Dave Dombrowski and Joe Girardi, they got a lot of work ahead of them for this team to compete for a championship in the next couple of years. And like you said, that Scott Kingery deal is awful. Like, it's awful. This guy can't play on a major league roster. 3, I'm with you. I got the Nationals. I think their pitching will carry them. I do. I think Corbin will be better than he was last year. Strasburg's going to play this season. Scherzer is Scherzer. And like you said, John Lester's their 4. I mean, when John Lester's your 4, I think it's pretty good. I just don't know if they have the bats to compete with the Mets and the Braves. That's all. And number 2, I got the New York Mets.
Here we go.
This all is assuming Pete Alonso rebounds from last year. Lindor plays like Lindor. They'll be fine. DeGrom is one of the best pitchers in the game, and the Mets can pretty much count on a W every 5th day. That's huge. Not a lot of teams can say that. Their bullpen's deep. I know you're scared of Edwin Diaz, but it's deep. I mean, they got Familia, Betances. They can figure it out. They just got to figure it out. They need to figure it out in the first 3 months of the season. If they can figure out in the 3 months of the season, they'll hold on to number 2 and they'll compete for number 1. But yeah, man.
The answer is Seth Lugo. I know he doesn't want to hear it, but Seth Lugo is the best pitcher in that bullpen, regardless of name, talent. Talent trumps all.
Listen, I've seen
talented.
Betances enough with the Yankees to know that he's unhittable. He's just a head case, and he's just hard to count on. But if he could just play baseball, stop overthinking things. His slider's nasty. If he could just play baseball, don't worry about if you're a closer, setup guy, just get the guy out. Strike the motherfucker out, all right?
That's the thing. I think he might need glasses like Rick Vaughn.
All right. So, and then number 1 for me is Hotlanta, baby. We got MV free. Contract year. I believe in Ronald Acuna. I believe he is the 3rd best player in Major League Baseball. He's behind Mookie Betts and Mike Trout. That's it. He's the guy. Don't give me that Juan Soto bullshit. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Fernando Tatis Jr. is always hurt. Don't give me that Harper crap. Don't give me that Bellinger. This is the 3rd best player in Major League Baseball. That's the problem with the Mets. They don't have that guy. He's that guy. I believe Austin Riley will improve this year, and he's going to prove that he can play 3rd base and left field for the Atlanta Braves, just like Chipper Jones did at one time. And that's it for me. That's my 1 through 5. That's my 5 all the way down to 1. And how do you think we did? Let us know. Plug the email address.
FadeRouteMail@gmail.com. Hit us up on IG at FadeRoutePodcast. Hit us up on Twitter at FadeRouteDNZ. Just don't call us at home.
Thanks for tuning in tonight. You can catch our podcast every Wednesday nights on the Anchor, Spotify, or other outlets where you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, stay faded, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Rate us 5 stars, leave us a review, turn on subscription notifications, and tell your friends. Spread the word, spread it wide.